Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the Medlock Post Radio Show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post Radio Show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. And here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is great to be back on Blog Talk Radio in association with Spreaker.com. It's proving to be a good combination, as we found out yesterday in our inaugural broadcast back on Blog Talk Radio. A little more about the history there, folks. I was on Blog Talk Radio for 5 or 6 years, and I loved it. It was easy. It reached a lot of people. I started out with a 30-minute program on sensible leadership, and it was an educational program, much like this is an educational program, and it was dealing with leadership. And because of my training background in leadership and in corporations and Scouts and Red Cross and other places, I was encouraged to do that. And it worked out well. I was able to work with corporations and do some training with them. And then we moved into, I think the first show was Money Talk, where we did talked about the economy and what's going on in the stock market. My background in stockbroker and finance led to that, and then it went to political economics. We went to that range to show how politics and money, how they mix, and some of the problems they cause, and how the politics should stay out of the economy. And then the last one, because of our reach, went worldwide. We called it World Reality. And if you Google those or do a search, you might be able to find some of those programs still out there. Most of them are on Blog Talk Radio. If you go in and go to archives, you can see those. A quick anniversary on this date, 45 years ago, Elvis Presley passed away. And those of you that are in my generation will probably remember exactly where you were when that happened. It's like knowing where you were when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. You don't forget big moments like that. And then 53 years ago today, the Woodstock Music Festival was in its third day, and that was in 1969. Huge event. People still talk about it today. And also that year, in August, the moon landing was still the talk of the town. Matter of fact, it was probably about this time I was going through Chicago to go back to college that fall, and that's when everything went through Chicago back in the 60s and 70s. And my aunt and uncle and my cousins lived there, and I always laid over and spent some time with them. My aunt was the executive secretary to the director of Parks and Recreation for the city of Chicago. That was a big deal. Her offices were in Soldier Field. We could look down on the field from our office. And the astronaut, well, actually it was only Neil Armstrong, was holding a thing that day in an auditorium, and my aunt took me there, and I was able to meet Neil Armstrong. What an occasion! So a lot of things took place on this date. I can't remember the exact date, but it was around this week in August when I was in Chicago. Congratulations out to Sarah Palin for winning the GOP nomination for the House seat in Alaska. And big congratulations for Harriet Hagman for kicking Liz Cheney down the curb. And Liz Cheney deserved it. So, Harriet, we are behind you, we support you, and we know that you will represent the people of Wyoming with dignity and grace. And both of these were endorsed by Donald Trump. He is on a roll with this, and I've talked about this in my episode 15, that all my episodes from Spreaker are now up on Blog Talk Radio. So you can go back on there and listen to them. And I'm not going to get in that today. I think we're going to have a conversation about that here pretty soon. Here's a quote. Ayn Rand, one of my favorite authors. Okay. If you haven't read Ayn Rand, you need to be reading Ayn Rand. There is no way to rule innocent man. The only power any government has is to crack down on criminals. When there aren't enough criminals, one makes them. One declares so many things to be a crime that it becomes impossible for men to live without breaking the law. Create a nation of lawbreakers, and then you can cash in on the guilt. Unquote. Now, folks, this is what the Inflation Reduction Act did. By sending out 87,000 armed IRS agents, they're creating criminals. All right, so I want to play this soundbite. It's a little over 5 minutes, and I used to play it in the past. It's during the Obama time. Matter of fact, she addresses Mr. Obama. So when you hear that, say Mr. Biden. But everything she says in there, and I don't know who this is, and I didn't know it when I played it 7-8 years ago. Everything in there is still pertinent today. So let's take a listen. It's entitled, We the People.
Dear President Obama, we, the people, have stated resolutely we reject your vision for our country. You claim you have not heard us. We, the people, have assembled across America resisting your efforts to subvert our Constitution and undermine our liberty. You claim you have not seen us. Since you have not acknowledged our message, let us here present it once more. For if, as President Wilson said, a leader's ear must ring with the voices of the people, the time has come. Our greatest treasure is freedom, the absence of restraints on our ability to think and to act. The corollary of freedom is individual responsibility. We believe in the power of the individual. A few years ago, President Bush said, "History moves toward freedom because the desire for freedom is written in every human heart." Let us add that we will preserve it only as long as devotion to freedom is expressed in the heart of our actions. When President Lincoln dedicated Gettysburg National Cemetery, he declared, "It is for us, the living, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so nobly advanced. That unfinished cause for which our soldiers willingly go to battle and for which so many have given their lives is a free United States of America. It has been nearly 150 years, and the work President Lincoln spoke of is not finished. In fact, that work will never be finished. Freedom is the capacity for self-determination. It is not an entity, but a condition, and conditions change. Freedom can expand, yet so can it contract. You promised change when you took office, Mr. President, but subjugation is not change we wanted or will accept. You have expanded government, violated our Constitution, confounded laws, seized private industry, destroyed jobs, perverted our economy, curtailed free speech, corrupted our currency, weakened our national security, and endangered our sovereignty. By compromising our nation's cultural, legal, and economic institutions, you are ensuring that our children will never achieve the same quality of life as we enjoy today. Through generational theft, you are robbing the unborn of opportunity. This is not acceptable, not in America. We did not become a strong nation through hope, but rather through self-reliance. No one better understands the relationship between individual achievement, dignity, and strength than our armed forces. Through every war, our soldiers have held this nation's destiny in their hands. They have not failed us. They cherish freedom enough that they are willing to die for it. Our duty to them and to ourselves is to treasure freedom enough to live up to it. We accept the challenge, Mr. President. That is why we are assembling across the land to deliver our message to you as often and in every way we can. Dismiss us at your political peril. Our great nation is a republic. We will not accept tyranny under any guise. Your policy to redistribute the fruits of our labor is statism and will not be tolerated. By our honor, Mr. President, we vow forever to resist coercive government in America. Patriots will not stand silent as you attempt to dismantle the greatest nation on earth. We, the people, will defend our liberty. We will protect our beloved country, and America's exceptionalism will prevail. God bless the United States of America. Sincerely, we, the people.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that sent chills up and down your spine. It does mine every time I listen to that. And I'm going to play that often. This isn't the only time I'm going to play it. To remind us of what we need to be doing to save America, to save our freedom and liberty, to have a country worthy of our children and grandchildren. This is the day today to stand up. That's a powerful message. And I thought about trying to give it myself, and I said, no. That's a great presentation and will be heard over and over. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just opened the chat room to this show. If you want to weigh in, feel free. All right. The title of this program, this episode, is Biden Surrenders America. And today's August 17th, 2022. And it's interesting. When I was putting this together a couple of days ago, and I came up with this title, I was going to review the 4 articles, 4-part series that I wrote after Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, a total, absolute disaster. But there was a reason it was a disaster. And then yesterday, August 16th, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, but yesterday afternoon, Biden signed into law, made it official, the Inflation Reduction Act, or the Socialist Constitution Act. And that was, again, another white flag in the continuing surrender of America. And Obama was doing it with Joe Biden at his side when he was in office, and now Biden is continuing that trend. This is ridiculous, folks. It's got to stop. Now, the Republicans are saying when they take over the House and hopefully the Senate in November, that they might not be able to overturn it because Biden would not overturn or sign a bill to overturn it, but they can stop the funding. Stop the funding of 87,000 armed IRS agents. That thought alone is scary. I mean, they've created a second IRS, literally. And not only did they create another agency within an agency, they created the National Climate Bank. Who's running that? The EPA. The Environmental Protection Agency are now bankers. They know nothing about banking. Matter of fact, people in government know very little about what they're doing. Now they have a National Climate Bank funded, I think, to start with $40 billion, which is going to be nothing but a slush fund, just like everything else they do. And then the big one, the 15% minimum tax on corporations. Now, it says if the earnings are over $1 billion. Now, how many of you remember the universal 15% tax that was adopted last October, by 136 countries led by the G7 and the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development organized this, the OECD. It's another globalist organization out there, along with the UN and the World Economic Forum and others that are trying to take over the rule of the world. So 136 countries signed that deal. Guess where that deal came from? Who originally came up with that 15% corporate tax for everybody? That's correct. The Biden administration and Janet Yellen. They presented it to the G7. The G7 adopted it. They went to the OECD and big meeting, and it was adopted. Tax, tax, tax. The 136 countries that have signed the deal represent 90% of the global economy. So 15% of the global economy, 90% of the global economy is going to be taxed at 15%. And the United States is right there with it, now that this bill is signed. They want to destroy the oil and gas and coal industry. Taxes on that. For every barrel of oil that comes out of the ground, there's a 16.4 cent tax. Every barrel. Well, what does that go to? That goes to you and I, the consumer. There are other taxes on methane gas. They were like $1 for every whatever it is, and other taxes on coal and energy. Tax, tax, tax. There are no incentives to work in this bill. There are no incentives to invest and grow your business. There are no incentives to do anything but start shutting down. There's no incentives for anybody to come from another country into the United States and invest here. It is a surrender of America to globalist ideas. And this needs to stop now. The subsidies to green energy companies will put the government in charge of these companies. It's a payoff of their cronies that have supported the Democrats through the years. And this climate crisis spending, please, ladies and gentlemen, I'm still trying to find a climate crisis. Where is the climate crisis? I mean, they tell us all this stuff. It's interesting, after Friday, when the House passed the bill, all these doomsday articles started coming out telling us, oh, we're going to have these massive heat waves. Oh, people are going to start dying. Oh, and I'm sitting there reading this stuff and just laughing. Why? Because all their predictions since the 1970s, when they started all this, when the first one was, oh, we're going into a big ice age. Well, we never had an ice age. Al Gore, all of his predictions have fallen off the side and drowned in dirty water. All of these predictions of doom and gloom, every one of them has not come about. The earth takes care of itself. So tell me what climate crisis we are talking about. I'm trying to figure that out because there's not one. It is man-made, and it's in the heads of these globalists and politicians that want to get rich off of this, period. John Quinton said, quote, politicians are people who, when they see the light at the end of the tunnel, go out and buy some more tunnel, unquote. And that's what they did yesterday by signing that Inflation Reduction Act. That's where we are, folks. All right. Now, the purpose of today's show was to go over the 4 articles I wrote about Afghanistan and how it is affecting us today, and it really has. It's part of that surrender. This was really the first big surrender. Let me start reading. This was part 1 that I wrote. This is August 27th last year. This is the first in a series of articles concerning the decisions to withdraw the United States military from Afghanistan. The world is witnessing for the first time in history the complete and absolute surrender by America. America, or should we be referring to those that are really in charge of the American government right now? Those individuals or groups that seem to be extremely smart are showing how they're either really stupid or are very brilliant in the strategy being used in Afghanistan. On the surface, it appears that one blunder after another has taken place with the Afghanistan strategy. First, to withdraw the military first, not embassy staff, not American citizens, and Afghanistans that supported the work in their country, is as insane as you can get. Second, to abandon completely intact Bagram Air Force Base with equipment, armaments, and technology for the taking by the Taliban terrorists. Third, to leave behind billions of dollars of military weapons, planes, helicopters, drones, and the technology is inconceivable to anyone's way of thinking. Fourth, to put your absolute trust in a worldwide terrorist organization who promises to escort Americans safely to the Kabul airport is beyond comprehension to any sane mind. Fifth, to hand over a list of the names of Americans and American partners to the terrorist organization is outright criminal and treasonous. Sixth, to turn our backs on the many allies that depend on America for support, and we depend on their support. But this is really a blunder. But is this really a blunder or a well-crafted and executed strategy to further the decline of America? Please don't fall for this totally incompetent act you are watching on television. This is a very well-planned, created crisis to bring America down and weaken America to a point that only a one-world government can save her. This is a first in a series of articles on the Afghanistan debacle. Now we'll get to part 2 in just a second. Technology, all those armaments, planes, everything. It was like $80-90 billion worth of stuff. Not only did the Taliban get it, but the Chinese and the Russians came in and took the planes, took the tanks, took the technology, and they're going to go out and reverse, design, and have our technology. Now, ladies and gentlemen, no military person in their right mind would leave that. They would blow it up before they leave it for their enemies to get. But no, we left everything intact, everything. And the Taliban is now ruling Afghanistan, 100%. They didn't form it. Well, anyway, let me get to my part two. On September 11th, 2001, Muslim terrorists hijacked 4 passenger jets and delivered a terrorist attack on the United States of America. This attack cost the lives of over 3,000 American citizens and first responders. Intelligence revealed the Muslim terrorists were based in Afghanistan under the direction of one Osama bin Laden. President George W. Bush declared war on bin Laden and the other terrorists. The war on terrorism began and still rages on today. Later, President Bush invaded Iraq under information they possessed weapons of mass destruction. And I'm not going to get into that today. They're doing some construction real nearby. If you hear noise, it's not me. In 2008, this is a little history lesson. In 2008, Barack Hussein Obama was elected to sit in the White House. Obama declared he would fundamentally change America. This phrase meaning was totally different than what Obama wanted Americans to believe. The goal was to destroy America's way of life and government as we had known since the Enlightenment began of this great country. He had abhorred the United States Constitution, and he set out to reduce its effect on Democrat lawmakers. And he was succeeding, and the progressive agenda was advancing. Obama was the great appeaser when it came to foreign policy and enemies. His American apology tour showed how much he despised America and Christians. His Secretary of State was Hillary Clinton. What was her role? Hillary was to do his appeasing around the world. One goal that Obama had was to help the Muslim Brotherhood expand their power base in the Middle East and Northern Africa. With Obama, Hillary, and the Muslim Brotherhood, they conceived the Arab Spring. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen? The Arab Spring was to help the Muslim Brotherhood fulfill its destiny. With the help of ISIS and the Taliban, war broke out in the Middle East. Libya was destroyed and Gaddafi was murdered. Syria was thrown into disarray with different factions and tribes fighting each other. The Muslim Brotherhood overthrew the Egyptian government and began a reign of terror, eventually to be removed by the Egyptian military. Negotiations were begun with Iran to bring peace. However, Iran dictated the main points so they could continue to develop nuclear weapons. Now, Trump got us out of that deal, and now Biden's trying to put us back in it. Iraq was trying to organize a new government, but separate factions within the country were not agreeing. The point is, the Middle East was in turmoil with Iran gaining power and supporting terrorists. Israel was under attack by Hamas and Palestinian terrorists. Afghanistan still at war with the United States and other nations. ISIS and the Taliban were raging and destroying countries, histories, and people. In 2016, Donald J. Trump is elected President of the United States of America with a promise to clean up this mess. And he did. The left and the progressives were completely devastated that their precious Hillary Clinton, the princess heir to the throne of Obama, had lost the election. The master plan to fundamentally change America had been derailed. As we will see later, not stopped. Total panic set in on the left, the progressives, and the globalists. They had to get rid of Donald J. Trump no matter what. All stops were pulled out in an attempt to achieve this goal. The Russian hoax, Department of Justice Special Counsel investigation, and 2 impeachments failed to stop Donald J. Trump and the work to make America great again. And then the question, what does all this have to do with the current day Afghanistan crisis? We'll get to part 3 in just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you're picking up that noise. I might have to redo this show. I'll go back and listen to it, but I hope not. They're right above me in the condo, right above me. Continuing, this is part 3. Plans to weaken America on the world stage. When Donald J. Trump took his place in history to sit in the White House, he began implementing policies that put America first. Those policies worked. The economy began to grow at a rate not seen in many years. The United States military was strengthened. Americans went back to work in record numbers. Blacks, women, and Hispanics' unemployment rates dropped to the lowest rates in American history. However, the deep state, the globalists, the administrative state, and the Republican establishment, never Trump rhinos, which I now call GOP socialists, did all they could to stop the positive America First policies of Donald J. Trump. The anti-American forces of those mentioned above finally decided that the only way to get rid of America First Trump was to steal an election. And they did on November 3rd, 2020. And when they did that, America's enemies knew they had the upper hand in the future. That has now been proven to be true beyond a shadow of a doubt. Joe Biden steps into the White House on January 20th, 2021, to the delight of the progressives and the Democratic Socialists. And let's not forget the globalists who desire that America be destroyed. They had lost 4 years of the fundamentally transform America agenda with Donald Trump in the White House. The plan now was to escalate the agenda and destroy America as fast as they can. The COVID pandemic was a good start, but more was needed. On Joe Biden's first day in office, he signed what was the number 72 executive orders. All the executive orders were to undo all that Trump had accomplished to make America great again. Turn America's back on Israel. Stop oil production that had made America oil independent. Remove sanctions against Iran in hopes to becoming partners with them. Insulting our allies. Stop building the southern border walls and allowed COVID-infected illegal immigrants to pour into America unrestrained. And so on until we reached August 2021. Now it's time to exit Afghanistan. Probably what went on in the planning meeting. Quote, "Comrades, what is the worst possible course of action we can take that would make our military exit a total disaster for us and some of our allies, and that would make the president and vice president look like total imbeciles? And what else can we do to make it look like the Taliban terrorist organization is a legitimate government? Then hope that a civil war breaks out in Afghanistan that might spread to other Middle Eastern countries. And last but not least, allow China, Russia, and Iran to gain more power and control in the Middle East." Unquote. This is exactly what happened in Afghanistan because Democratic Socialists are running America. We have discussed the how of what happened in Afghanistan. Now, in part 4, we'll answer the question, why did this happen? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the why that we exited Afghanistan the way we did. And there's a reason why. And it made a little bit of news in America, made a lot of news in Europe and the Middle East. Part 4. Joe Biden surrenders America to Muslim jihad terrorists. The Obama-Clinton Arab Spring strategy to have the Middle East taken over and run by the Muslim Brotherhood was discussed in Afghanistan Part 2. That strategy was a failure for the most part. The one thing it did accomplish was to embolden the Muslim jihad terrorists to wreak havoc throughout the world until Donald J. Trump became president of the United States with the America First agenda that was a very big success in America and with other countries. Then enters Joe Biden to the White House with the full support of Obama, George Soros, the Democratic Socialists, the Deep State, and the Never Trump rhinos from the Republican Party. And now I call them the GOP Socialists. And others who believe the United States should be brought to her knees and destroyed. And everything changed for the worse. Everything changed for the worse for Americans and her allies. Joe Biden and the list of anti-American supporters and followers had been planning for many years how to take America down and control the country in a totalitarian state. But certain things had to be in place for that to happen. The plan was succeeding in many ways, but one thing was missing. This next explanation answers the what is missing question. The wrong question is being asked about the total, absolute failure of the United States military withdrawal from Afghanistan. Everyone is asking, how could this happen? But the right question to ask is, why did a seemingly straightforward military exercise of withdrawal turn into such a chaotic international disaster? To fully understand what is about to be presented comes from decisions and planning from so-called leaders who want America not to be America anymore. Steps had to be laid out as to ensure that the goals to hurt America would happen. One thing that needed to happen is for China and Russia to benefit. The oil pipeline benefit for Russia and the pipeline in Europe was beginning. Then China was missing a country to build a railroad from China to Iran. And yes, Afghanistan was that country. And they have it now thanks to Joe Biden. So that railroad from China to Iran is being completed. One of the pictures at the top of this article is the route of the railroad. Let's name it the Taliban Railroad. The Taliban Railroad will now provide a direct link between China and Iran, with Russia having access as well. Other countries the Taliban Railroad will run through is Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. 5 Muslim jihad countries are now linked. Do not forget that Turkey will be part of the railway too. Thus, it created a 5-nation railway connecting China to Iran to Turkey. The recent capture of Mazar-e-Sharif puts the whole Afghan segment under Taliban control with support from China, Russia, Iran, and now Biden's administration willing to support the Taliban. And also, let me add now, to support Iran. Even though the Taliban has been gifted a full army's worth of armaments and planes from Biden, under the guise of economic and humanitarian support, the Biden comrades want to send $9 billion to Afghanistan, right? With control of Kabul and almost all of Afghanistan, a whole country slightly bigger than Texas, the Taliban and the Muslim jihad terrorists are free to do as they please. Even Turkey has resumed bombing in Syria because nobody is there to stop them. ripple effects that will be heard around the world. In a report out of Israel, the Taliban and Muslim jihadists have free access to take over the Middle East and even beyond. And the bigger why. Let us get back to America and the bigger picture for the democratic socialist and the globalist. With one big event, what one big event could destroy credibility in America? Weaken the United States military, in one step turn America's back on our allies, and damage America in the eyes of the world and many Americans? The answer is Afghanistan. The answer is a complete and total surrender to the Taliban and the Muslim Jihad terrorists in Afghanistan. In one event, Joe Biden and his handlers have managed to do to America what could not be done before: bring America closer to her knees. Even opening the southern border has not had this kind of effect. This is not America. We the people know this is not America. The people, the American individual and family is the strength of America, not the government. We the people will not allow the government to rule by an iron fist, not in America. Not now, not ever. Take counsel and heed from two of our founding fathers to focus on the work and ideas we need to do to get rid America of a totalitarian government and to protect the values and principles of the United States. Thomas Jefferson, quote, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man," unquote. Thomas Paine, "These are times that try men's souls. The cause of America is in a great measure the cause of all mankind. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. If there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my children may have peace. If there must be trouble, the world is my country. All mankind are my brethren, and to do good is my religion. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. We have it in our power to begin the world over again. Government in its best state is but a necessary evil, in its worst state an intolerable one. I offer nothing more than simple facts, plain arguments, and common sense," unquote. That was Thomas Paine from Common Sense. Let this be the cry of we the people to rekindle that flame of American patriotism in our hearts, minds, and soul. Let our voices be heard like the roaring of lions. Raise our voices in mighty prayer to Almighty God to preserve and protect America and strengthen our resolve to preserve our sacred Constitution. Pray that the light from above will guide our work to protect our God-given rights of freedom and liberty. Block from our minds the negative and hateful influences that divide the great people of America. Raise again the banner of freedom and liberty, the American flag, with honor, hope, and dignity. Let not our hearts be troubled with the evil that surrounds us. Arise, America, arise. Like the phoenix from the ashes. We the people are Americans. The world needs to see that the American spirit, human spirit unleashed, which made this country the greatest on earth. Let freedom ring. And ladies and gentlemen, that was my 4-part series that I did after the withdrawal of the United States troops from Afghanistan. It is a clarion call, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about this the day before. We're going to talk about this tomorrow and hereafter. We need to inspire you to wake up and see what's happening. I promise you, between now and November, you will start to feel the effects of this new Inflation Reduction Act, which is a total lie. It will have zero effect on inflation. Matter of fact, it's going to raise inflation. The same thing as Obamacare. Oh, you're going to save $2,500 a year in medical premiums. You can keep your doc problem. Total, absolute lies. It did just the opposite. Most people probably spent more than $2,500 a year instead of saving it. I saw one estimate last night that this would increase spending within the next year of a family $700 a month. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. And we here at the Medlock Post, in conjunction with the Up With America organization, the Lady Up America organization, the Federalist organization, the Federalist Society, the Intellectual Takeout, and others out there, we will be working together to bring you into our group to save America. And yes, sadly, it needs saving. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our episode today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And as others listen to it on a recorded basis, that they enjoy it also. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless America. We need our prayers of earnestness and sincerity going up to our God. So let's do that. Let's bring that out, and let's get going. Let's get working. Find a local. That was a little loud, but find a local group to get with. Start on the local side. Start there. We got to make changes there too. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for the Medlock Post today, and we will be back tomorrow with Larry Biddle, and we will be talking about how to take back education in America.